Hello, welcome to the Center for Visual Arts. My name is Miss Natalie and welcome to week 5 of art camp. Today we're going to do an art project inspired by Yayoi Kusama. She is a Japanese sculpturist. She also paints and draws, and she does a lot of installations. So we are going to take out week 5 of our art camp. And so in here it looks like we have some monomagic, some markers, and a paper plate. And that's basically all we'll need for this project. It's a very simple project. It's very clean, unlike Louise Burgoy's Mom Spider sculpture. And so let me show you a quick picture of Yayoi Kusama's flowers that she does. So here's a flower that she did. It looks like something out of maybe a Mario game or like from like an alien planet or something. And so Yayoi Kusama is, as I mentioned, a Japanese sculptor. Well, does a lot of sculptures, but she's been referred to as a princess of polka dots. So in a lot of her artwork and installations, she does a lot of polka dots everywhere. So to start out with, we have some monomagic, and we're going to open this, and we're going to make our own polka dotted flower. And I would highly recommend taking your scissors, the ones that we used for Louise Bourgoy's black spider. Not black spider, I did a black spider, but whatever colored spider that you did for yours. And we're going to open up our monomagic. And before we get started making it, we want to kind of plan out what our flower may look like. So if you want, you can take your Sharpie and you can maybe draw out what you want your flower to look like. I think I'll draw right on here. Maybe I kind of want to do a swirl like that. And do a flower right here, and maybe some flower petals. You can kind of think about how many flower petals you want to do, and leaves or antennas or whatever else you would like to add to your flower. You can add whatever you would like. So because of this drawing, I'm going to rip off, first I'm probably going to rip off a stem. My stem's going to be a little bit skinny, so I think I'm going to use this much for my stem. I'm going to set that aside. And now maybe I'll figure out how much I want to use for leaves. So maybe these two parts will be my leaves. And then maybe for my center of my flower, I'll use this much. And then maybe I'll rip off 5 equal parts of this part for my flower petal. Maybe while I'm doing this I run out, so maybe I have to go into another section and pick out, so maybe I'll take out a little of my stem and add it to my flower petals. Right, I think this is good. Okay, so next is we're going to take our markers and we are going to color. Before I do this, we need to make sure that we take off a little bit. So I'm going to take off a little of my stem, little of my center, and we'll use these for our polka dots. We want to make sure that we leave a big clump of monomagic for our polka dots. After all, Yayoi Kusama was known for her polka dots, so we want to make sure we put polka dots on ours as well. So I'll leave this right over here. So now we're going to start coloring our pieces. You know what, this is too much of a stem. I'm going to take some of this off and use that for more polka dots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my markers and I'm going to think about what color I want my stem to be. Now you can do any color. I'm going to be kind of boring and I'm going to do green because green is my favorite color. And we're going to just color this clump of monomagic, and you're just going to do little hash marks. And maybe I want my stem to be a little bit lime green, so maybe I'll add some yellow on here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch this out, and the colors are going to start to show. Now the lighting in here is kind of funky, so you're going to have to do a couple of hash marks. Quite a few actually. And I want my stem to kind of have a solid color. If you want, you can do like a tie-dye color so you don't have to mix your colors thoroughly if you don't want to. Starting to get there. I want it more colorful. Right now it's kind of pastel. And I love pastel colors, but I want this a little bit darker. So one really cool thing about Yayoi Kusama is she does these art installations, which are kind of like these really big like art projects that she does that people can kind of interact with. So she does these, she fills these rooms with polka dots. And in one of them, I forget what the title was, but you go in this room and it's filled with mirrors and it's covered in these polka dots. These like the lights that shine in there are polka dots. And so when you walk into the room looks like it goes on forever. So it's kind of like when you go into a fun house and you go in the mirror section and you can't figure out like where to go, and it looks like the space goes on forever. It's kind of like the same thing. So, and it's a truly remarkable exhibit. I've never been there, but it's definitely on my bucket list. But it looks like you're kind of in space. All right, so I don't know if you can see from the light, but you got this. I've got this kind of pastel green that I'm going to use for my stem. And next, oh, I got to do my leaves. I think I'm going to do my leaves the same color. Goodness, I should have just, I don't know what I was thinking. All right, but anyway. And the cool thing about Yayoi Kusama is she is still alive and still kicking, and she is still making art projects. Well, art. When she was really young, when she was 10 years old, she used to go out to her garden and draw the flowers. And when she was drawing the flowers, she would see polka dots everywhere. She kind of would have these visions of polka dots all over the place. I'm going to mix these two leaves together because I want them to be the same color. And you can do whatever colors you want. I know I already mentioned this, but I just want to emphasize you do not have to stick with the norm and do green stems or a yellow center to your flower. Go crazy. It's very fun to play with monomagic as well. It's very squishy. All right, here are my leaves. Now, let's see. I'm trying to think of what color I want my petals to be. I think I'm going to do purple. I don't have purple, but I'm going to make purple. So I'm going to take red, blue, and pink. You know what, maybe I won't even use red. Maybe I'll just use pink and blue. You probably can't see this, but my hands are getting progressively dirtier and dirtier from these art projects. Kind of like battle scars. I'm very proud when my hands get messy. Messes are very fun. Alright, now I'm going to take some blue. Oh goodness, this blue is very vibrant. And I should mention, if you want to, you can definitely look up a picture for inspiration of a flower. So maybe you don't want to do just an ordinary flower of petals. Maybe you want to do like, maybe some like a daffodil where they've got that, oh, that center that really flares out. Or maybe you want to do some lavender where it's just a very thin little stem and it's got little dots off of it. You know what am I thinking? I'm just going to combine all of the petals together so I can get the color that I want. Goodness, that blue is slimy. It's all over my fingers. So I'm starting to get a very pastel purple. I'm going to add more blue. This takes a lot of color. So you may have to color the entire thing of monomagic a couple of times. I would recommend making sure you do this over your paper plate so that way you don't lose your monomagic, and it makes it so much easier when you're finally done with the sculpture. You can just let your masterpiece dry right here on this piece of paper. Another really interesting thing about Yayoi Kusama is that she actually lives in a psychiatric hospital, and every day during work hours she just, her studio is just right across the street. So she'll just go, from the hospital, she'll just walk over to her studio and work on her art projects. And then at night she'll just go back to the hospital. Alright, I think I like this purple. I don't know what color I should do for the center. You know what? I'm going to do orange. Orange it is. While you're working on this project, you can sit and daydream. It's a pretty relaxing project. So you can think about what you want for a snack, or your where your happy place is. Or you can make up a story in your mind. I like to do that too. Alrighty. Goodness, the blue from my fingers is starting to bleed onto this orange, which is kind of funny. I kind of like the texture, so I'm going to leave it for right now. Alright, so next is we can start assembling. So my first thing is I'm going to take my stem and make it be the thickness that I want. And I'm going to have my flower laying down just because it's going to be really hard to have my flower kind of standing up like this. So I'm going to do kind of a curve thing like this. And then my flower petal will be right here. So maybe it would be best if I maybe make my flower first. So I'll cut this into 5 sections. Equal sections. Well, your flower petals don't have to be equal. Alright. And you can have your flower petals be any shape you want. I'm going to kind of flatten them out and kind of stretch them out and kind of fold them in at the center. They'll be a little thin. I should mention not to make sure none of your pieces are really thin because it'll be very easy for your flower to break. So there's one. I'm going to kind of do little leaf shapes, I think, for my flower petals, but they'll be a little more rounded. Almost done. Right, so there we go. And once your monomagic touches, it kind of just sticks. See, just like that. So I'm going to start to add in my flower. And I misjudged. I've got this big space right here, so I'm going to kind of have to kind of stretch them out a little bit differently. There we go. Here's our flower. Oh. I think I'm going to make a space right here for my stem, actually. Goodness, why didn't I think of that? Oh well. Always learning. Alright, here we go. And I'll make my flower petals kind of fold in, so it'll kind of act as a stand. And I'm going to make my leaves. I think I'm going to do 2 leaves. One right here and maybe one up there. So maybe I'll make the one up here a little bit smaller. So I want to make sure that my sculpture is balanced so that way it stays upright. Maybe I'll do a flower petal right here, and I'll kind of stretch the monomagic over so it kind of looks like it blends in with the stem a little bit. And I think I'm going to have my leaf touching the ground a little bit. And then I'll take this little guy and put him right up there. There we go. See, there we go. And now I'm going to add some polka dots. See, I think now if you want you can just take your marker and do polka dots, but I kind of want to do some lighter colors, so I want to do some yellows, especially on my flower, and do some polka dots that way. I think I'm going to use this much for my flower polka dots. I'm going to do yellow. And then I'll rip it off. Make sure they're flat as a pancake, and you can do variations of color sizes. There's one. There's two. And it's kind of interesting to lay the monomagic polka dots over the flowers because you kind of get some height variation. I think it kind of pops out. I'm going to do some itty bitty ones. You can challenge yourself to see how tiny you can make a polka dot. Great thing about being small is you have smaller hands, so you can get into smaller places. So you can make smaller polka dots. Aha, and I still have some excess white left over, so maybe I'll do a giant polka dot in the center of the flower. That's kind of weird. It works. Alright, now I think I'll use this bit to do some greens on my polka dot flower. You may find yourself you have a little bit of excess monomagic over, so maybe you can make a tiny little flower to maybe a baby flower to accompany this flower. Oops. And then once you're all finished, your project should dry in maybe about 2 or 3 days. And then you can put it in a fairy garden, you could keep it on your bedside table. I mean, you can even take a little tweezers and put these polka dots on. Oops. Alright, and I think we're all set. We still have a little bit of monomagic left over, so I may add 1 or 2 more polka dots. But I think we got the general idea. Oh, there we go. It looks very whimsical, like something out of Dr. Seuss. That's the other artist I was thinking of. These flowers definitely remind me something of a Dr. Seuss. Ooh, whoops, that polka dot got awfully close to that flower petal. Anyway, I'm going to continue on making these polka dots, but I really hope you enjoyed this project and you learned a little bit about Yayoi Kusama, and if you ever get the chance, I would definitely look up her Infinity Rooms because they are quite the sight to see.